Delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my pleasure and privilege to be here this morning and to encourage you. I was talking to the chair this morning that some of you will be coming here next week and the other week because Kenya has ratified the African Charter on Values and Principles of Public Service, and the President of the Republic of Kenya is obligated to submit Kenya's report at the end of next month. So this body, those of you who are coming here for the first time, you actually can influence political policies about management of people across the African continent towards the free continental Africa, and how states should then manage their people. You have that chance. I know Linda came here from APAM. Linda. The African Association for Public Administration and Management would give you the history of this particular body, how it was born, and what it's supposed to do. I have been asked within the theme, Human Capital as Statecraft, Reimagining Public Sector HR for National Transformation, to look at a small component, the human capital as backbone of state capability and institutional effectiveness. I did look at the program, and I assumed that although you'll have a keynote address tomorrow, that I would give an overview of what these particular items are. So what I have done is to look at, Florence Chege called me to come here. I'm a very proud public servant. I have worked for this country for the last 44 years. This is how you can look like when you work for 44 years. The HR managers here know about the issue of life balance. Ukitumbukisa pombe tu kwa mwili wako utakuwa mzee, lakini ukitembea na Yesu unabaki kiumbe kipya, unang'ara-ng'ara, unakuwa na mang'aro-ng'aro. Nothing disturbs you when you go to sleep. But of course, like most of you do here, it's important also to prepare for your life in the future, because the body refuses as you age. Paul, are you sabotaging me? By the way, that Paul, to me, I'm his Paul in the Bible. That's my Timothy. As public servants, you must be able to point at your Timothy. That's my Timothy. So I want us to look at this, using this, an introduction to the concept of human capital, the definition of the OECD, statecraft, state capability, institutional effectiveness. If we look at this, we will have looked at the theme of this particular conference, and then we will be demonstrating how human capital then is seen as backbone of state capability and institutional effectiveness, because we will have understood those concepts, and then we will have a conclusion. You don't need to be a student of political science to appreciate what this means for us. What it does tell us is that when we sit at our desks, we have those who come from the education sector. We need to be developing competencies that we will require in the year 2063. Kenya's next vision after Vision 2030, Kenya at 100, is already being thought through now. What competencies shall we require? If you look at the Vision 2030 document, it conceived the Silicon Savannah, the Kansas City. Create the capacities and the companies will then locate here. So if you want to create development, it is possible to create skills and competencies today so that people in the future will then see you as having a comparative advantage. So this presentation will unbundle the concept of human capital, statecraft, state capability, and institutional effectiveness. I'm wondering whether it's sabotage. We will then demonstrate how a country can use its human capital for statecraft, build state capability for institutional effectiveness leading to national transformation. We're talking about national transformation. So I begin here by looking at what the Organization for Economic Countries gives of human capital. It defines human capital as the knowledge, skills, competencies, and attributes embodied in individuals that facilitate the creation of personal, social, and economic well-being. That is the definition of human capital according to OECD. It's considered a fundamental driver of economic growth, productivity, innovation, representing the stock of human abilities that individuals can deploy for productive work. Florence, I hope we don't have foreign delegates now, or as of now. Do you have foreign delegates? The comments I'm about to make would not be very good if you have foreign delegates. You know, you don't make demeaning comments when you have visitors, right? And in the issue of diplomacy, I'll be looking at diplomacy, statecraft diplomacy, yeah? You don't demean countries because then you lose trust for collaboration and cooperation when you demean them. Florence, you went to the country called Sierra Leone. Mulienda Sierra Leone. Nikaona mwanakisifu. By the year 2008, Sierra Leone systems were very underdeveloped. There's that man who died, the former head of public service called Sulu. In 2008 in Arusha, he was telling us they eat snakes. And when you want to kill a snake in Sierra Leone, you give it a boiled egg. So when it swallows the boiled egg, you know, when it's swallowing, it burns it and it dies. Then they cut off the head and they eat the snake. That's what he was telling us. Even when you go to countries like your neighbors here, you know, our neighbors here, Tanzania, Uganda, their HR systems are not as developed as Kenya. They are not. Move across the countries and you'll be shocked about how far ahead we are of those countries. Now, if you look at the people we have here, I've seen my nephew, Belinda, you know, Florence, that Belinda of Retirement Benefits Authority. I'm the uncle. Yeah. There are many. Even Linda who came to talk to you. Linda, always proud of you. Linda is my mentee. Tumetoka naye mbali. Ukimwona amefikia pale, Linda hasa na kutupia mikutano hivi, mimi najivunia sana. You know, the accumulation of all those, the cumulative total of all that we have in the people in the country would constitute what we are calling our human capital. Then we have what is called statecraft. Statecraft. This, if you're looking at the role of HR, or the HR as the backbone for state capability and institutional effectiveness, then you need to understand statecraft. A president comes into the office and you have 5 years, in other jurisdictions 4 years, in others 7 like Rwanda. So when you leave, what shall we remember you for? Beyond you. Kibaki left and is long dead, buried in Odaya. But he leaves us behind with Vision 2030. I had an MP on television this morning says, this country has done nothing about infrastructure. I said, that's very myopic. Paul, this is state myopia, you know, intellectual. I said, what are you talking about? Huh? Because you hated this, the fourth president, even if you didn't like Uhuru, Uhuru left you the expressway. Uhuru developed the railway line from Nairobi back to Nanyuki. The railway line back to Kisumu. For the first time, the police service has hospitals for the police. You know, he did it. He improved our inter-African relations, took Kenya back to the world stage where we are recognized diplomatically at the UN. We went back to the UN Security Council. You can't say he did nothing. You know, you cannot have a legacy when you are still in the office until you leave. So you don't know how you'll be tomorrow. Those of you tell your fathers they are useless. If your father has died and you're calling him useless, he's lucky because he can be jacked. And you don't know how your ending will be. So when we're talking about statecraft, It's about the art of leading a state. The art of leading a state. Jomo Kenyatta used to say serikali ni sirikali. Na alikuwa anasema kuna wale ambao walikuwa wanalamba mikundi ya wabeberu wakisema, oh, that was Jomo Kenyatta. Moi came and said, mimi nafuata nyayo. Mimi nafuata hiyo mwanzilishi wa taifa yetu alifanya. He had a way of managing. He didn't trust civil servants. He believed in politicians, so he had them across the country. Hapa kwetu Pwani alikuwa na mheshimiwa Sharif Nasir Taib. Ukienda Ukambani alikuwa na mtaalamu wa mambo ya kimila na mambo ya Ukambani pia mzee Mulu Mutisia. Kila sehemu alikuwa na watu wake. How you manage affairs of the state. Mwai Kibaki did not believe in politicking. Actually, Kibaki did not believe in party politics. Although his party politics had brought him from Kampala into KANU in Nairobi, but he had little time for party politics. He had technocrats. He believed in the capacity of persons who've gone deliberately to school to study as the source of advice to government. Then you had Uhuru, who believed everybody must be a good person. So why should I be policing people when people are supposed to be good themselves? He naturally believed. If you look at the background of his schooling, it was said that you didn't have prefects. I went to a high school where we didn't have teachers giving us instructions. We elected the head boy, the school captain. We elected the house prefects. We elected class prefects. We determined things from high school. Teachers never managed us after 3:20 p.m. We managed our affairs. So when you now want to follow me, Florence, at where were you? I saw you coming in at the gate at 8:15. I have learned from my high school days to manage myself within a world of prescribed regulations. I don't like anybody looking over my shoulder to tell me what I need to do. You know, how do you manage affairs of the state and managing public affairs? Statecraft goes beyond politics. It's long-term. It's long-term. Here in Kenya, we have seen from 2013, as soon as we finish an election, the people holding office are campaigning for the next election. That is not statecraft. That is politics. Statecraft is, for the 5 years I am in the office, I am going to influence activities for the next 50 years. Those who come will be building on what I have laid as a foundation. That is statecraft. It is long-term and involves deliberate use of tools at the disposal of a state to secure its interests, stability, and prosperity. Please allow me to use our own examples here without being disrespectful to government. Why should we help Tanzania build a refinery? Tanzania does not have a refinery. Uganda does not have a refinery. We have a refinery hapa Changamwe. You know, we have a refinery here. Why not upgrade our refinery? Tanzania is a hostile neighbor to us. Is there a chance that Tanzania can stop supplying us with oil and gas? Why would you surrender your interest to Tanzania? Kenya has greater industrialization than Uganda and Tanzania. Why should we support Uganda to build the largest steel mill in East Africa? I thought it should be in Kenya. Statecraft is about, our interests. What is it that will give us stability? Should Kenya be importing maize from Malawi and Zambia? Kenya is now importing eggs from Uganda. Kenya had a more advanced agricultural sector because of the colonial settlers. Now we are importing eggs from Uganda. Very soon we shall be importing toothpicks and matchboxes from Uganda. Stability and prosperity. The death of factories in a country does not occur well for prosperity. Statecraft is about those issues. Stability, prosperity, and the question of our interests. We can't go to a meeting and say, tupeane hiyo kwa Uganda, tupeane hiyo kwa Tanzania. We all ask, anybody here from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Foreign Affairs. Before the review, our foreign policy, the previous one, the Wetangula one, the 5 pillars. The theme of our foreign policy is, what is in it for Kenya? Anything we do, we ask what is in it for Kenya. Statecraft is about that long-term thinking. Where do we want Kenya to be? We want to have a Kenya that dominates this area in technology. We want a Kenya in which public service practices, Kenya is at the forefront and therefore will dominate Africa and set models for Africa to borrow from. The way Huduma centers have become a center for benchmarking, that is statecraft. What are the tools for the statecraft? We have a number of them, around 7 of them. One is diplomatic statecraft. Countries use diplomacy to negotiate. They establish alliances and participate in summits as a means of influencing world events. We go to meetings and send our diplomats, very strong people, so that things are seen from our point of view. And if things are seen from our point of view, then we are unlikely to attract resources for the prosperity of the country called Kenya. So diplomatic statecraft is one critical aspect that you look at here. We have the second one. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to conclude and look at how then does HR support this. Economic statecraft, that it may take the form of trade deals. Kenya negotiating with the European Union to have preferential treatment in the export of flowers, horticulture. We do it for the benefit of Kenya. Our farmers will get a fair price. Negotiating with the countries in the Middle East to accept beef processed by Kenya Meat Commission so that the farmers in the frontier counties, the ASALs, don't have livestock dying when we have no rains. That is economic statecraft. What is in it for us? Negotiations. Countries that may not, like when Amini threatened us in 1976, Kenya said, we will not allow goods going to Uganda to go to Uganda. Sanctions become a tool of economic statecraft. So if you're going to have a refinery in Tanzania, we have surrendered certain rights we have. It's dangerous for us. It's dangerous for us. If you disband a military because the other countries are saying they are going to guarantee safety, no. Britain and the US told Kenya at independence not to maintain a military. That in the event Kenya would be attacked, Britain with soldiers in Nanyuki and Israel will come to our aid until Amini threatened us in 1976. The question of trade sanctions, aid and development projects. The reason when Nguka was asking, South Sudan, when South Sudan was negotiating for independence, it was done in Kenya. And Kenya government, apart from the European countries, gave nearly 1 billion shillings to support capacity development. By doing capacity development for a country, you ask people to do SWOT analysis of their foreign policy, for example, and they give you a copy of the report. A SWOT analysis of their agriculture, and they give you their report. What are you in effect collecting? Intelligence. You design policies that make them dependent on us. Statecraft, economic statecraft. Then you have military statecraft. Why do countries require militaries? Although it has been disapproved. No, it has, actually. America thought it was the most powerful military in the world when they went and abducted Maduro through the window. And they took him to America in pajamas with his wife. And Trump said, we found him. The guy was just panicking and crying and pleading for mercy. We are going to sell their oil. Military muscle. In 1937, Persia changed her name to Iran. And then a regime came to Persia, the Pahlavi regime. Shah Reza Pahlavi was the last one in 1979. The Iranian revolution of 79 brought in Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. And from 1979, Iran has been preparing for war. They have built tunnels underground. Israel does not share a boundary with Iran. Wars can never be won by air forces. You require foot soldiers. They have bombed Iran, but only destroyed 1/3 of its capability, military capability. America today is negotiating with Iran not on its terms because of military capability. Ethiopia, 3 years ago, acquired the Russian Sukhoi 37. Uganda has 12 Sukhoi 37. Pakistan, 6 months ago, has given to Somalia the J-26 that is similar to the Sukhoi. Kenya's Phantoms, the F5E, are inferior to the Sukhoi. So by the time President Kenyatta was leaving, we had a negotiation to have F-16s. And this French man who has come here, apart from helicopters, has also agreed to give us, Mirage. You need military capability as a deterrence. It's a means of negotiating. When you go to a place, you can negotiate and tell fellows, well, if you don't agree, wanaume ni kuonana uso kwa uso. Military statecraft is actually a means we use. Countries develop military might for deterrence, for defense, for peacekeeping, and for use to threaten others to submit. When you have a military, people respect you because you can take them on. Then you have what is called information or cultural, the use of information, media, education to create opportunities for a country. And we have examples here. English has been used to allow the British to dominate the British and America because of the use of English. The French in their former colonies used language to dominate. So when you want to get world-class education, you must think of MIT, Yale, Harvard, Massachusetts. Why those? They dominate you. Why are we not going to Korean universities? Why are we not going to world-class universities? China has world-class universities. The infrastructure and technology of Chinese universities beats Western universities now. But we use language. Tanzania is likely to dominate the Comesa region because African Union has adopted Kiswahili, right? By adopting Kiswahili as a language, Tanzania will now provide people to train people in Kiswahili and the interpreters during conferences because they have that. So you can use what we are calling cultural statecraft. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere used Kiswahili to unify over 120 ethnic groups in Tanzania, and that has seen the birth of a nation. Then ours here, why we don't even know who we are. Kenya, we don't know who we are. When you hear an MP saying we, he's talking about their ethnic group. Then we have intelligence statecraft. This fellow called Besije. Is it true that the Ugandan military intelligence picked him from Besije from Kenya, or was it the Kenyan military intelligence, Kenyan intelligence services that handed Besije to Uganda? In our case, we were the National Intelligence Service. The use of intelligence agencies enables countries to know the thinking and plans of those around and how to thwart any potential threats to national interest. How does intelligence benefit us? And Chair, we are asking, in terms of human capital, how does that give us superiority over the countries? By the way, in Africa, until 1981, the most highly respected intelligence services in Africa was Kenya's Directorate of Security Intelligence and South Africa's BOSS, the Bureau of State Security. Very, very highly respected intelligence services. Are we still there? Although under Jomo Kenyatta it was very strange. Under Kenyatta, the shoeshine boys were members of the intelligence service. Newspaper vendors, these tea guards, people who serve you with the tea. Under Jomo Kenyatta were intelligence officers. The current government tried to use intelligence officers in the Uber and Bold. They were very careless. They exposed themselves. You can just know this is an intelligence officer. Uber and Bold. So how do we use it? America uses technical aid. When USAID comes to help hospitals, you give reports to them about what you have done. When USAID comes to support agriculture, you give them reports. It's intelligence gathering. That is intelligence statecraft. Then you have institution building, creating laws, bureaucracies, and courts that outlast individual leaders. Kibaki may have been opposed to the 2010 constitution, but it was promulgated under him. We will remember Kibaki as the president under whom we had a new constitution. Infrastructure, the development of Vision 2030, that is a statecraft. Now, the reason why I'm giving you this background is to look at then what is the role of human capital in the creation of this environment. We have what we call good statecraft. It's based on long-term vision, building institutions of governance. There shall be a school, the African School of Government, the Kenya School of Government. You are looking at institutions that there shall be in the future. Under Vision 2030, we wanted the Concert City, the Open University of Kenya, a city of technology. Good statecraft balances interest between security, economy, and legitimacy. People have the right to assemble. It's in the Constitution. So do you disperse them using the police because you are in charge of the police? When you do that, you lose legitimacy. So when you're talking about good statecraft, then you must balance between security, economy, and legitimacy. You must define your limits by matching goals to actual power and resources. Can you do all those things in 1 year? It's like today in Kenya, it has become very painful for public servants, and the people in public administration don't know what to do. Year 1, NSSF. Year 1, SHA. You know those many things. You have seen the budget that Mbadi is presenting. They had said the people who earn below 50,000 shillings will not pay. In the budget that is appearing in Parliament, that has disappeared. If you had celebrated that you're not going to pay, you're going to pay. You cannot promise things beyond the resources you have in what we call good statecraft. Do it within your means. Florence, if I met you, if you are dem, unasikia? Tukutane huko Nairobi, alafu nikwambie nitakupeleka Watamu. Na hata Watamu sijaingia huko. Alafu nakwambia tutaingia Coast Bus, tufike Mombasa, alafu tuchukue magari ya kwenda Malindi. But somebody can fly you from Nairobi to Malindi, or air leasing services from Nairobi to Vipingo Ridges. You know, where will you go? Where will you go? Not bus go barabara. Resources. Do you have the resources? Paul kama wewe sasa wewe na mimi tunataka kungangania mtu. Inakushinda. Nitapatia tikiti wewe uwezi. Then you have the last one here. Good statecraft adapts by shifting statecraft to the context, the environment. What are the conditions? Nyerere is an example. When he found Ujamaa was not working, you abandon it. Should you pursue something even if it's unpopular and it's not working, should you stick onto it? If you are in that habit, then that is very bad statecraft. So we look at examples of bad statecraft. Bad statecraft focuses on short-termism, on the next election. You are in politics, you are doing it because it's the next election. You are not doing it for posterity. It's not a sustainable thing. You want to convince people just for the next election, or you are waiting for the next crisis, then you'll arise. Number two, bad statecraft tends to be one-dimensional, using force or attaining populism. I must be popular. That is very bad statecraft. So if you became popular, how are these things useful to the public? Number three, it tends to be characterized by overreach. Promises which the state can't deliver. That is bad statecraft. You are not able to deliver on promises you make. And we are looking at this. These features will characterize ineffective institutions, states that are not capable because you can't deliver. Rigidity, you keep using the same script. Even if it doesn't yield expected results. It has never worked. You continue doing it. You can't. It's like the president used the hustler narrative last time, right? You can't use that narrative today. You saw the administration was trying to use the question of Singapore. You know Singapore. That is similar to that. So will that script work? What are we supposed to be showing in good statecraft? This statement helps us look at what we want to talk about, the role of HR. Politics is about winning power, while statecraft is about using power once you have it. A good campaigner, for example, can become a president. You campaign very well. While a good statecraft practitioner keeps the country stable, grows the economy, and navigates global competition many years ahead. What we would look at as national transformation. Preparing the country to withstand shocks. You have a stable reserve. You are stable in agriculture. Your education system produces persons sellable across the whole world. That is what statecraft demands of us. So, human capital becomes a great instrument of statecraft. Florence, this answers our question. Human capital becomes a great instrument of statecraft when the state deliberately develops and deploys its people's skills, knowledge, and health to achieve national goals as we want to demonstrate. If we prepare our people to achieve national goals, then you are seeing human capital as the backbone of state capability and institutional effectiveness. And I have this to present. One, that is HR as backbone of statecraft, economic statecraft. Skilled workforce and investment in education and technical skills can influence future investments, as was the case with Korea's Samsung, Hyundai, and K-pop. Those have transformed Korea. As a country, we can identify areas where we think there will be demand in the future, and the companies that want to invest in those areas are likely to come to us because we have the skills. So skilled workforce can then be used to bring about that economic statecraft. The other example is negotiation. Countries with an oversupply of professionals can get better deals in international negotiations. Where do you want to place the IT tech companies in East Africa? Would you go to Uganda? Would you go to Tanzania? Would you go to Rwanda or Kenya? Where would you want to go? Rwanda has friendly rules, right? But which country has the human resource in ICT? It is here. So if you want to invest in those areas, then you can use skilled workforce for what we are calling here economic statecraft. Innovation capacity. Kenya is among the top 3 countries in Africa in the area of innovation, coming after Ghana, Mauritius. People want to come to areas, particularly today, where innovation rules the economy. That gives us an advantage as a country. Availability of skilled human capital can attract new industries instead of exporting raw materials. We want to process gold. We want to process oil here. Anybody here from the office of the Attorney General? The Ministry of Petroleum, State Department for Petroleum. Petroleum? In the year 2013, Kenya took around 12 lawyers to study petroleum law, because we are foreseeing ourselves becoming an authority because of oil discovery. So that is what we're talking about, innovation capacity. You have the issue of diplomatic statecraft, soft power exports. A country with an abundance of professionals for export can use them as ambassadors for international goodwill. We had done very well in South Africa. You know, Kenya does not have people who watch sufurias in South Africa. Kenyans in South Africa are engineers, doctors, lawyers, you know. We are seen positively, and when South African companies want lawyers and doctors, they'll come to Kenya because we have demonstrated that. So we can use soft power exports as a means of diplomatic statecraft. Whom do we want? Do we have? William Ruto has been trying to do it, but people have got it differently. Exporting people, particularly skilled people like the nurses, they become our ambassadors, and people start respecting our education system, our training capabilities, because they provide services to America, Britons, and other Europeans, yet they learned through here. That gives respect to our systems here. We have the question of diaspora leverage. Diaspora remittances today are a critical foreign exchange, Anna. That is part of diplomatic statecraft. If people, the country called Eritrea, by the way, Eritrea earns over 50% of its GDP from diaspora remittances. The people. Brain trust, a country with competent diplomats, negotiators, help global rules, often in its interests. When Monica Juma leaves this place and joins an international body, and in this area, Tanzania has done better than us here. You know this one here? The question of brain trust. There are more Tanzanians at the African Union, more Tanzanians at the UN, more Tanzanians in UNESCO than we do. You know, here our local pettiness interferes even when the government is supposed to sponsor and support people. We get into very strange things, and that's why we've not done very well. Then you have military, statecraft, technological age. Kenya does not have a large army like Uganda and Tanzania. Katibo. Uganda has a military of 80,000 soldiers. They have 20,000 reserves. Tanzania has an army of 35,000, but with 200 reservists. Because every college-going student in Tanzania has to go through military training. What about Kenya? A small army, a small air force, and a small navy. But what is our advantage over those other countries? Our military is technology-based. We have converted the Kahawa barracks into a hub for drones. You know drones? While Uganda has around 300 military tanks, the Kenyan drones have the capability of striking them across the border before they come here, destroy them. You know, with that capability. Kenya assembles drones here. Are you aware? We assemble drones here in Manyani. Others easy to go capability. We repair ships here. We repair ships in Kisumu. The Kenyan Navy has the capability of hitting Tanga using missiles from its base. But if it moves down, it can hit Dar es Salaam. When Museveni's boy was saying he is going to march into Nairobi, Kenyan logistics makes movement faster. You saw when we were going to DRC Congo, it took us 36 hours from Nairobi to Congo. So how long will it take us to Kampala? Those capabilities, right? A capable state is one that can defend its boundaries, right? A capable state is one that can maintain law and order. And who is behind it is people. So we're saying here that technology that it is dependent on human capacity that allows a country to be ahead in logistics, cybersecurity initiatives, and development of drones. Countries that have achieved those have invested heavily in human capacity. Stability, educated and employed youth means fewer numbers available for recruitment by extremists. We need to create a country that absorbs its young people who have education, because then they cannot be recruited. We have institutional statecraft. Florence, you'll be sharing maybe with this sitting here, about you as HR at the Kenya School of Government. How do you support the school to prepare for tomorrow's challenges? Because the Kenya School of Government is supposed to be ahead of institutions in trying to identify competencies and preparing the republic for those challenges. AI, you know those things? We have cybersecurity, new areas where we need to develop capacity. The school is supposed to have that. So you would be sharing to look at how do you make a contribution. Policy, skilled technocrats keep the state running through coups, elections, and other transitions. This country, even when we have had presidential petitions, has withstood what would challenge other people. The post-election violence was a moment when we demonstrated that Kenya has a stable public service. COVID-19, Kenya recovered faster than most African countries because of the caliber of human resource. So the second item we talk about is what we are calling state capability. State capability refers to a government's ability to effectively formulate and implement policies, enforce laws, and provide public goods across the territory. A capable state. Very popular at the beginning of 2001 when we were looking at capable and developmental states. The key features of capable states include coercive power, physical capacity, administrative capacity, and legitimacy that allows the state to function rather than exist. So I want to look at those here, dimensions of state capability, coercive capacity. If the police cannot manage riots, then we lack state capability. We have no state capability. A country whose police cannot manage riots, Kenya nearly fell into that in 2007, post-election violence. A country with a military and police and people are being killed. A country with the police and people are being abducted and we don't know who abducts them. That is an example of state failure. What we are calling state capability. The use of coercive power. Physical or extractive capacity, the power to raise revenue through taxation. If people can come to a level where they say we will not pay taxes, and they have legitimate reasons for not paying taxes, then you lose state capability. You are not able to finance your development. You borrow 80% of what you have to use to even pay salaries. Somalia is an example of a country that has lost the physical capacity. I'm showing this to demonstrate that in these areas, all you require is human capital. You have the question of administrative implementation capacity. The effectiveness of bureaucracies to execute policies, manage human resources, and provide public goods. You know, we have been talking about reforms in Kenya from 1993. But where are the results? If a country cannot translate its policies into tangible outcomes, then it lacks that administrative capability. The state loses capability because we don't have the administrative capacity to implement development. Policies, many of you come from ministries particularly. Ministries in Kenya are unable to effectively implement staff performance appraisal. It's not working in the ministries. That then is a pointer to administrative inadequacies. Administrative inadequacies render state capability lower and therefore cannot effectively deliver development. We have legal or judicial capacity, the existence of a functional, standardized legal system that enforces rules and property rights. Gachagua was impeached last year, didn't it? Last year. Was it 2024 last year? Wamunyoro? 2020? Imagine the holder of office of deputy president. For 2 years, that case has never been concluded. Our cases of that caliber should be settled as fast as presidential, petitions. So if you have, for example, commercial cases that stay in a court for 100 years, you saw J.M. Kariuki. J.M. Kariuki's land case. Kariuki died in 1975. The case was concluded a month ago. The failure of institutions like the judiciary to adjudicate and deliver judgment on issues that have commercial implications is an indication of state failure. There's no capability of the state. Who will come here as an investor if we can't resolve disputes expeditiously? We have the issue of legitimacy and rule of law. The degree to which citizens accept and obey government, often supported by impartiality and a lack of corruption. Even at the HR practice, we are 5 of us who are due for promotion, 3 of you are facilitated, and 2 of us have very strange reasons for not being promoted. Anybody here from the Ministry of Health? Health. Friends, I met Dr. Moth, the Director General, and they had come for a program here on corporate governance, and he was complaining to me that for 5 years he was the acting Director General. Why should somebody who is not qualified be allowed to act for 5 years? Unless there is issues of corruption, who are you waiting for to mature? 5 years. The HR who are here, you are guilty of that. 5 years, somebody acting, and the first year of acting performance exceeds expectations. Second year exceeds expectations. The position cannot be advertised, and this person cannot be appointed. If you belong to an institution such as that, those are symptoms of institutional failure and therefore symptomatic of incapable states. Considerations other than professional basis are used to make decisions. Legitimacy. People can refuse to obey you. You do not follow the law. We will also refuse to obey you. Now, Kenya belongs to this one here, high capability states, where you have professional bureaucracy, staffing government agencies with skilled human. Florence, when I exit your place, I'll write something about my experience at the school. The school. And the school has very good programs. Paul, can you be standing? Kuja hapa kwanza Wamonyoro. I just want to use an example. This young man is called Paul Kamau. His other name is Wamonyoro. But he comes from a place in the Rift Valley called Warufaga. You know Warufaga? You know Warufaga? Elbagon, eh? This young man came to Kenya School of Government as an intern. You know him? This young man came as an intern. This young man has great capacity and potential. This young man, he can write you quality papers. This one. I have gone to conferences in Kampala and outside, and the person who wrote those papers was who? Paul. Give him a clap. If we want to build capable states, we must develop capable people. Florence, I'm very proud of you because I know you have a program of identifying high-performing interns and giving them contracts. And that's where Paul here belongs. Paul worked with me for 1 year. Then the director general of the school was going to a meeting, and he carried Paul. I had whispered to him that Paul is very good at taking notes and writing summaries. And Paul went with him, and when they came back, Paul gave a report of what had taken place in the meeting and making proposals on how the school could benefit. And he called me and said, Simon, I have seen. The boy has great potential. Paul, after 1 year of internship, is currently pursuing a master's policy in public policy at Kenyatta. You get it? He recently went to China, and they made him president in the class. This man here. Are we getting people into our offices because they come from our ethnic groups? Are we getting people because they belong to our religious, persuasions? We must invest objectively in the people with potential. Paul, thank you. And I have prayed for you to become a great man. The man from Warufaga, El Bagon. And he will go very far. This one. So Florence, you also know one term. You know one term. So you know her? Huh? The girl. Oh, she has great potential. HR. Are you promoters of ethnic appointments? Are you promoters of mediocrity? If you are here and you are used to get mediocre people into organizations, then you are under this high capability states, professional bureaucracy. The people you pick, how do you develop them? Information management, the ability to gather and use data to monitor and improve state activities is a feature. The issue of embedded autonomy, the capacity of the state to act independently while staying connected to society to make policies effective is critical. Implementation focus becomes very critical for capable situations. The last one here before we drop our conclusions is about what we call institutional effectiveness. Florence, can Kenya School of Government in Mombasa host 5 conferences of 100 people each? You see that, huh? On the other side, we have 98. They have 98. The smart one. Then you took this. Then we have Kekobo. Kekobo will be coming. We have other small. Can we handle them? Do we have the people? If there was a disaster at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, an air crash, Kadipo, if an aeroplane crashed at Jomo Kenyatta and it was carrying 600 passengers, do we have hospitals in Nairobi that can handle 600? It'll be a struggle. Huh? Where? Nyumba inaanguka hata. Yes, Kenyatta was designed for that purpose. That field near Nairobi Club, which somebody is trying to grab, was meant for evacuation. The location of Wilson Airport had something to do with the Kenyatta. But what? How are you? Hey, you are here. Hey, Florence. That one from Kenyatta also worked with me. Si nilikuwa mdosi mzuri? Nilikuwa mdosi wa huyo. Tuliona mazingira yetu yalikuwa mazuri. Yes, that gentleman worked with me in the ministry. Hey, nilikuwa mdosi wake. A very nice gentleman. Hata uko na gray hair. You are a young man. Your friends have been promoted to secretary now, eh? You saw it, eh? Yeah. So when we got talking about institutional effectiveness, if we were to ask you, has the Kenya School of Government delivered on its mandate? Would you say yes or no? If an institution is not capable of delivering on its mandate, then it lacks what we call institutional effectiveness. Why were you established? Nyakango, you know the lady called Nyakango, the controller of budget. Has she delivered or not? Nyakango, has she delivered? Nancy Kadungo, the Auditor General, a woman, has she delivered or not? So if you are an institution and you have a mandate and you don't deliver on that mandate, then you lack what we call institutional effectiveness. An effective institution delivers on its mandate. Why do you exist? I hope I've given you the survey. Then I'm going to draw my conclusion about how HR is the backbone. An effective institution has capacity, both human and physical. Somebody said, well, you said about Kenyatta Hospital. Since Kenya went to Somalia, do you ever see military trucks on the roads? Kumbe walikuwa na magari kidogo tu. Magari yote iko wapi? Somalia. If South Sudan attacked us and Uganda attacked us, do we have the capacity? Hakuna. If we had the campus in Mombasa for Kenya School of Government full, Embu, Baringo, Matuga, and they are doing a particular program, do we have the human capacity, for example, the lecturers? Do they exist? Do we have the facilities? That is the mandate, then capacity, and the question of accountability. An effective institution delivers on mandate, it has capacity, it has accountability mechanisms, and it adapts through people and technology. Florence and I were discussing about, you have this conference, you know this one here, and there's also one for the state parties assessment tool. And I was telling Florence, you know those people also wanted the auditorium. She said, no, we booked early. We booked early. We shall now ask and say who booked early. I said, but you know they can come with the minister. If the minister came here and he was opening and you are here, who would be here? You can see. But do we have provisions that if this was to happen, we have tents that we can put out there? The question of adaptability. So these four are characteristic of what we're calling effective institutions. An effective institution has a clear mandate. No one knows what the institution must deliver and what must not. Who clarifies this? Is it not HR? Is it not? Even at the individual level, who clarifies what the job descriptions are? Who clarifies job specific and a schedule of work? Is it not HR? Number two, and before number two, take the example of 3 ministries undertaking youth empowerment with the different projects and zero coordination. It's a bad example of unclear mandates. There are institutions of government that write letters to remind you, it is our constitutional mandate. It is our constitution. Tuwai ndiyo alikuwa anasema si ya mamako, serikali ni ya mamako. You can't work with us because it's your mandate. I went to an institution while I'm at the Kenya School of Government, and somebody told me that even in our act, we also have capacity building. Does capacity building mean training? Capacity building is not equal to training. The development of systems is part of capacity building. Oh, it's our mandate. So if you have this situation, then that is not an effective institution. The case of Rwanda's development board, where there's only one door for investors. Mara uende hapa, utoke hapo, very bad example. This is a good example. The case of Huduma Kenya, government services under one roof is a very good example. Kentrade's one single window. If you want to import goods You don't have to go to many bodies. One window would promote that. That would be an example of mandate interpreted correctly. Number two, you have technical and operational capacity. The staff have the capacity skills. And HR, for example, who cannot do what HRs are supposed to do, then has a problem here. You cannot guide people on work planning. You can't help them set targets, HR. You can't identify competencies required, HR. You lack technical capacity, and therefore there would be institutional ineffectiveness. A ministry with civil engineers who have never built a road or a building, that's lack of technical capacity. Taking the example of Kenya Revenue Authority's iTax team of coders, lawyers, and data scientists, it has seen tax collection go up. Unajua watu wamekuwa wabaya, watu kuna mtu wa KRA hapa. KRA mko wapi? KRA. Yes, it's something positive about you. Musiogope. By the way, this is one institution where people don't seem to sleep. You can imagine when you come, Safaricom has come up with these things, and you are buying minutes, buying bundles. They are confusing villagers. But the Kenya Revenue Authority follows them on every new product you design. Everything you do that is new, KRA is following to look at opportunities for money. Is that not your mandate? That's your mandate. You are delivering on raising taxes for national development. So if they are, like Makanisa niliona sitam inasema it collects 3.8 billion. How much of that is from Sadaga and how much is from projects? That which comes from commercial projects, KRA. Mufuate wale watu. Mufuate wale watu. So Kenya Revenue Authority now has iTax teams that comprises of coders, lawyers, and data scientists. They study, right? They study and will tell you where the potential for revenue collection can come from. That is an example of an institution that has interpreted its mandate. Kweli nimeona umekuwa mzee. You know how Singapore measures results? Singapore. Ministers sign contracts in public. And on the television every 2 weeks, they show you the performance of the ministry on a dashboard. So what they do, results are measured publicly and leaders are rewarded or fired based on them. In Kenya, a CEO of a parastatal that makes losses gets transferred instead of being fired. Even the ones who are abandoned out from the office by December, they'll have got new jobs. In Malaysia, ministers sign key performance indicators with the Prime Minister, and performance is tracked and shown on TV. If targets are missed twice, you get fired because it's in the public domain. Unaenda. Here, ministers walk around with convoys, driving on the wrong side of the road and delivering no results. Performance accountability is a feature of effective institutions. We have adaptive learning and feedback loops. An institution has in place mechanisms for detecting failure early and is able to change course fairly early. Reviews are after every 5 weeks and not 5 years. Look at the example in Kenya. The president in 2022 introduced subsidized fertilizer program, right? If you go to the Ministry of Agriculture and ask, that's the case of fertilizer subsidy that has run for 3 years. Has anybody ever checked to confirm that farmers received fertilizers or not? Because I saw somebody on television saying Those who were registered, some of them were not even farmers. They were receiving fertilizers for sale. They were selling. So do we have mechanisms for tracking what that happens? A strong example of adaptive learning is M-Pesa teams. Safaricom is like KRA. Safaricom has mechanisms like for this e-citizen. You have to monitor what is happening and people keep on giving you feedback every time. Paul, that thing must be checked. Is it it will not be very good for people presenting. The question of legitimacy and citizen trust. People believe the institution is fair, competent, and serves them. When there is fairness, there is competence and service. All are observed through actions of HR. Citizens will avoid a land registry that takes 5 years to provide title deeds, while cases of prompt delivery of services attract approval of citizens and earns legitimacy for the institution. I saw Governor Sakaja. You know Sakaja? I saw Sakaja now walks around offices in Nairobi, although the streets are potholed. But he goes to the offices and finds citizens are complaining about services, right? You have seen him following it up himself. He calls. But that should not be, systems should work on their own without that prompting by the governor. Coordination and systems integration. A situation in which an institution links smoothly with others. No cases of that is not my department. When citizens need one service, they don't care who is giving it. Think of a case where a farmer needs paint, water permit, land title deed, a loan and export certificate. But they have to go to various offices. That lack of seamless service delivery is an example of an ineffective institution. And so, ladies and gentlemen, what do we have here? Question of political insulation. Day-to-day work is protected from political interference. But big critical calls are supported by top leaders. You want to make a decision, politicians can rule you out. I don't know how our case will end here. The Minister for Finance, the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, Mbati, gave an overview of the budget and said agriculture has gone down. The President said that was not true. Where is this information from? If you have that confusion in government, what does it mean about Kenya's National Bureau of Statistics? International users of data cannot trust us. They don't even think that we manipulate data. So the credibility is important. If a governor of a central bank gets fired for refusing to print money in an election year, that would be symptomatic of a weak institution. A public institution that has strong legal policy protection is critical in winning investor confidence. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, my conclusion, I gave you a survey for us to look at the question of a capable state, institutional effectiveness, and statecraft. We are saying here that states don't fail for lack of money. They don't fail for lack of plans or laws. They fail when people running institutions can't turn those into results. We are not providing results. That is HR as backbone of state capability and institutional effectiveness. We're saying human capital is the transmission period between ambition and delivery. What we have on paper as our plan only becomes realistic through people. If the people are not capable, we will not get the results. State capability is the government's ability to get things done. Collect taxes, build roads, provide health services, run education, keep order, and negotiate trade. We require this because of the HR we have. Institutional effectiveness is the ability of individual state agencies doing their jobs well. Human capital sits underneath effective state capability, that is the state capability and institutional effectiveness. We need people. Human capital makes institutions effective. How? Competence delivers results. If you have competent people, Mkienda kwa hiyo mikutano yetu ya APS HRM, msijifanye kimbelembele huko. Unajua nchi nyingine za Kiafrika zinatuokopa. Wakenya mnakipendekeza. But it's about capacity. Don't take this capacity you find in this country for granted. You will go to countries and managing events, they hire private persons, even conferences. They hire private people. Kenya has got to a level where even public officials themselves, ourselves, do it without, you didn't have to hire somebody for this. In some other countries, you saw what you saw in Dar es Salaam. Uliona vile walikuwa wamevaa masuti. Sasa wameshinda Kenya, ninyi hamvai masuti kama wa Tanzania. Mliona APS ya Tanzania? Wanajiita EPAM ya Tanzania. Wamevaa masuti. By the way, those of you who are members of APAM and CAPAM, we have a regional conference in Zanzibar on 7th, next month. 7th, 8th. You're aware, leader. We have a conference and registration is very good. There was a meeting at the office of the Deputy Head of Public Service in the morning, and numbers are not very bad. So we will be going there. When we go to those meetings, we always are very cautious, because the competence we take for granted here does not exist in some of those countries. But if you want to have institutions that are effective, you require competence that delivers results. You can't have good roads without competent engineers. Quality hospitals without competent doctors. In the last 2 months, the Kenya Revenue Authority has been bringing staff at the school. Mumeleta watu wengi kwa shule. When you sit with various levels of people from Kenya Revenue Authority, then you can actually read patriotism. Yet the rest of us say, wale watu wanaipanga pesa. Capacity. Number 2, ethics and mission leads to trust. A capable institution does not just have people who are competent. They must be competent and be ethical. They must be ethical. So if you have a competent and ethical public and a human capital in a country or in an institution, then you are likely to have capable institutions that are effective. Adaptability. Adaptability guarantees survival. Laws can't predict climate shocks, AI or pandemics. Only skilled people can rewrite procedures in real time. So even in periods of VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, you require the human, the person. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we are saying this. Human capital builds state capability. States are called capable not because of the resources they have. Congo, DRC Congo, has all minerals of the world that anybody would want to think of. Is it delivering? Its problem is not lack of minerals. Its problem is lack of competent human capital. 2, human capital runs institutional effectiveness. When you go to an institution and find its exiting targets, an institution is delivering, it's not because those things just happen. It is because of human capital. So you are beginning this conference by asking yourself whether if you are to be given a checklist, your institution would qualify for what is called a capable institution or not. That's why we're beginning this. Because you have units you're going to look at, but you should be asking, does your institution where you work qualify to be the category of capable institutions? Does your institution qualify to be called effective? Because institutions are only capable or effective to the extent of the capacity of their human capital. And finally, without human capital, sovereignty is theoretical. Again, I want to make a statement here. Can you imagine we were repairing State House Which company was doing it? Which company was doing it? Chinese. Chinese in the bedroom yetu. If you look at the Uhuru Gardens near Wilson Airport, that was done by the Kenya Armed Forces, the Defense Forces. They did that. I know State House, there are specific aspects of State House that the Chinese engineers are not allowed to do. It's our military engineers. But you know, if all things you want to do, you want to run an airport, civil aviation from another country, like in the case of South Sudan, during the independence celebrations of South Sudan, the traffic air controllers were from where? I know somebody was from Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. KCA, Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. Kenya Civil Aviation Authority is a very highly respected institution in this region. In South Sudan, when Sudan was celebrating independence, the people who took control of air traffic control in South Sudan was from Kenya. The air defense units that covered that area during celebrations were actually from our military here. You are looking, as a country, if you can't make your roads, as a country, if you can't manage your hospitals, as a country, if you can't run your universities, as a country, you know, nothing, everything must come from outside, then you have lost sovereignty. Countries celebrate sovereignty because of human capital. Countries are recognized to have effectiveness and capability because of human capital. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I want to submit that human capital is the backbone of state capability and institutional effectiveness. I submit